Hello, Pokemon trainers! Welcome to a Pokemon TCG Pocket video here on iStarly TV. So this is my first video talking about TCG Pocket. I've been playing a lot of it and definitely loving it. I downloaded it as soon as it came out and I have been playing a lot of it. I've been debating whether to do some videos for it and I really want to. I just got to get a good setup for those kinds of videos for recording, but if you're interested in some TCG Pocket, let me know. And honestly, go ahead and be honest. If you watch my channel, I typically do Pokemon battle videos, typically Battle Stadium singles on Scarlet and Violet. And so if you would prefer that I stick with that, let me know. If you would prefer that I only do TCG Pocket, let me know. If you would be fine with anything or fine with a mix of the two, let me know as well. I absolutely appreciate your feedback. And again, you can be honest. If you don't want me to do TCG Pocket, let me know. But we're going to see how this does. This video is going to be talking about the Emblem event that went live last night for me in my time. I'm in United States. And this is the Emblem event where you need to get 5 wins in a row in order to get the Gold Emblem. So there are like 4 different emblems you can unlock basically for the different numbers of consecutive wins you get. You get an emblem when you get 2 wins in a row, then 3 wins, then 4 wins, and then 5 wins. And of course, 5 wins is the maximum. And I was able to get this in about an hour, give or take. And so we're gonna walk through my experience. Now, I will just start by saying the 2 decks that I used to end up getting the emblem, getting 5 wins in a row. I started with a Wheezing Arbok deck, and then I finished strong with a Mewtwo Gardevoir deck, which of course is, you know, one of the more annoying decks in the format. I do understand, but my thought process was I definitely wanted to get this emblem. I was kind of worried about it. Like, I've been playing this game a lot, and I feel like I'm doing decently. Like, I feel like sometimes I make some good plays, and I understand how the game works and everything. But I was worried that that it would take me a while or that it would be very difficult for me to get the 5 wins in a row. And so I started with a Moltres Charizard Arcanine EX deck, but I had too many games. I won 2 in a row, and then the third game, I got 3 tails with Moltres' attack. It's with its ability that can put energies on your bench Pokemon. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to do any more coin flip Pokemon. I'm not going to rely on coin flips for this event. It's way too volatile to try to get 5 wins in a row. And of course, it is possible. Don't get me wrong. You can probably get 5 wins in a row with almost any deck if you understand the deck really well and understand your matchups in the meta. Of course, the strongest decks are going to be Pikachu EX, Mewtwo EX, probably the Moltres deck, as well as like some kind of Starmie deck with Misty, some kind of Misty deck. So those are probably like the 4 most reliable decks, but I really wanted to start with one of my favorite decks at the moment, which is the Wheezing Arbok deck, which has no EX Pokemon in it. So that means you're going to be, you know, when your opponent kills your Pokemon, they're not going to be getting that many points for them. And you can do a lot of really fun, really kind of tricky things with your Pokemon to kind of rack up that damage. You're not doing that much burst damage, but Arbok is really strong. 60 is actually pretty solid. It 2-shots a lot of common Pokemon in the meta. Of course, you also are super effective against Mewtwo decks, so that gives you an edge against those. You have a good matchup against Pikachu decks because you can 2-shot almost everything in their deck, or 1-shot some of the younger Pokemon, some of the smaller Pokemon, I guess. And yeah, so my thought process with this deck was I love the deck, I have fun with it, I feel like I'm pretty good with it. And what I try to do is, or what I wanted to do in the event was win 2 games in a row with this deck because I felt like that was pretty possible, and then switch over to like a really strong deck just to finish the event. But I got 2 wins pretty easily, and I was like, you know what, let me just do another one. So I got a 3rd win with this deck as well. I probably could have gotten 5 wins with this deck. I think this deck is very good right now. It doesn't require any EX, as I said, and if you learn the ins and outs and learn how to play it, it is very good once again. So here is my deck list for the Arbok Wheezing deck. Nothing super crazy here. I guess I'll talk about some of the choices. I have double Giovanni. Giovanni is great for just adding damage, and that's really what this deck is all about. Again, it's unlikely you're going to be one-shotting anything in this deck, except for some of the smaller, like basic Pokemon. But aside from that, like, you're never going to be one-shotting things. So what you want to try to do is rack up damage, get damage over time on the enemy, and make it so that you kind of force switches. That's what happens a lot with this deck. When you start poisoning their EX Pokemon and getting like 30 damage, 40 damage, maybe 60 damage here and there, they end up retreating pretty quickly because they don't want to die. They don't want to give you the 2 points for their EX. And eventually you get to a point where like 3 of their Pokemon in play, like their active Pokemon and like 2 of their bench Pokemon, have like 28 or 30 HP remaining. So at that point, like, if you can force some switches or get a kill, you just kind of snowball from there. So it's a lot of fun. I also have 1 copy of Kangaskhan in this deck, which is, I just wanted an extra basic Pokemon, and I really love Kangaskhan in this meta. It's a really tanky Pokemon. It rarely dies in one hit, except to some EX Pokemon that have set up a lot. So it's really hard to take down, and it can do some pretty good damage. It is not reliable damage, don't get me wrong, but, you know, the goal with Kangaskhan is to kind of get it in play while you're setting up your Weezings or your Arboks, or maybe if you have like a Coughing in play but you don't have Weezing yet, it can buy you some time until you find Weezing, and then once you set up from there, because Weezing basically requires no setup, which is amazing. And for as strong as it is, like, getting poison on something and then 30 damage, which is not a lot, but for 1 energy, getting 30 damage and then again adding to it with that poison every turn, again, you do add up the damage over time. So Arbok is the one Pokemon that does require a little bit of setup in this deck with the 2 energies, but the 60 damage is great. Arbok also, its attack, I don't know if I can zoom in here. I don't know if I can, but sorry, I have it on my screen, but it's 60 damage for 2 energy, and it makes it so that the active Pokemon of the enemy cannot switch. They cannot retreat during their next turn. So this is an amazing move, because again, it 2-shots a lot of Pokemon in the meta, or 1-shots. And so if you do 60 damage to a Pikachu and they have 60 remaining, that means next turn you're going to kill them, right? And of course they cannot retreat, so they can't save their Pikachu. So, and of course Arbok very beautifully has 100 HP, which does not die to Pikachu's 90 damage. Of course, if they have a Giovanni, that changes things. If they also have a potion, that can change things with the 60 damage from Arbok. But there's a lot of situations like that where you just kind of like put so much pressure on them and force them to make those decisions, and it puts you in a good position. So again, if you know what you're doing with this deck and you know how to play it well, you can pressure the opponent pretty aggressively, and then you can maneuver the game to win. Maybe retreating your Weezing, going into Arbok to finish them off. Weezing in general is just so good at, again, the poison. And of course, the perfect card is Koga for the Weezing. Koga only works with Weezing in this deck. The only other Pokemon that Koga works with is Muck. In case you don't know what Koga does, it lets you pick up your Weezing and put it back into your hand, as well as the Coughing. What that does is your opponent, it does not count as getting knocked out, so your opponent does not get any points for that. And it gives you momentum. So if you have like an Arbok on your bench with 2 energies on it, you can Koga your Weezing and put Arbok into play. So Weezing's first ability, the one that poisons them, is a Poke Power, which does not count as an attack. So you can poison them with Weezing, Koga it, put it into your hand, go into Arbok and do 60 damage, and then they're still poisoned and they cannot retreat. So that's kind of the dream scenario, is, you know, you poison them, get rid of Weezing, go into Arbok, and then do 60 damage. And again, they can't do anything about that. They have to stay in, and basically, eventually they will die. Sabrina is an amazing partner with Arbok, because again, Arbok locks them in. They cannot switch once you attack. So what you can do is, when you have your Arbok in play, you can Sabrina them, and then they have to go into something weaker, presumably, and then you can Arbok that, you can attack that, and they either die or they cannot switch out. So you kind of get to eat one of their, like, either weaker Pokemon or one of the Pokemon that they're trying to set up. It works so well. 2 Pokeballs, 2 Professors Research, no explanation needed. These are like probably the best cards, possibly the best cards in the game, because they can go in literally every deck and they just give you so much value. And then finally, a single copy of Potion, just because, again, I really wanted that Kangaskhan in the deck just to have an extra basic Pokemon that's just pretty neutral. And so that means that I didn't have room for too many other Pokemon, or too many other cards rather, so I just went with the Potion. So this is a great deck, very tight. You know, the gameplay is really fun, And again, once you kind of get it down, once you kind of learn the ins and outs, it's a really, really good deck. And the beauty of it too is it doesn't really require like that much like experience. Like, yes, if you do play a lot with it, you learn the ins and outs, you can be very, very good with this deck. But it is also pretty beginner friendly because, of course, you don't have any EXs, but also, you know, the fact that Weezing only requires 1 energy to start doing damage, to start attacking. Kangaskhan only requires 1 energy and Arbok only requires 2. These Pokemon don't require a lot of setup, so it doesn't really require too much thought as to like, oh, should I put my energy on this Pokemon or this Pokemon? Because, you know, if you put it on one of your Pokemon, the next turn you can just put it on the other one and you're probably going to be good to go. So pretty beginner friendly. And again, I only got 3 wins with this deck, and then I moved on to a strong, well, quote unquote stronger deck. But I definitely could have gotten 5 wins, and I think you can too. So if you want to try this deck, feel free. And of course, we'll briefly talk about my Mewtwo build. You know, again, this is like the best deck in the format, or one of the 2 best decks in the format. It is a very, very strong deck. Unsurprisingly, I was able to get 2 wins in a row with it, you know, to finish off the 5-win streak after I got 3 wins with the Weezing deck. Absolutely, you could get 5 wins in a row with this deck. You could probably get 10 wins in a row if you wanted to. So yeah, this one, as a lot of people have started doing, I am playing 1 copy of non-EX Mewtwo in addition to the 2 copies of Mewtwo EX. It's just a great tank. Like, it has 120 HP. You can put it first and then basically build up your EX Mewtwo's on the bench. And if your opponent ever kills the non-EX Mewtwo, it's not really much of a loss because they only get 1 point. At that point, you can go into your Mewtwo EX and basically kill anything because it's 4 energy attack, does 150. That kills, that one-shots most Pokemon in the meta. Of course, it does not one-shot some of the 2-stage EX Pokemon like Machamp, Charizard, you know, Blastoise, none of which are super common, but even still, like, you can just do massive damage to them. And then in the case of like Machamp, for example, you obviously have a great matchup there. Of course, the iffy part about this deck, I mean, it's an extremely powerful deck. The one thing about this deck that is not always the most reliable is the fact that we are trying to build up a stage 2 Pokemon in the form of Gardevoir. And that can be a little risky sometimes because there's going to be games where you draw Kirlia, you never draw Ralts. Maybe you have a Kirlia and a Gardevoir in your hand, and you never draw Ralts. Or the opposite, you have Ralt in play, and you have a Gardevoir in hand, but you never draw Kirlia. So that sometimes can happen, and if your opponent's playing a really aggressive deck, or if they have a really good start, that can really set you back. But again, this deck, you know, it's another one where it's decently beginner friendly, but I think there are a lot more decisions to be made. Like when you have an opening hand of like, you know, Ralt, Mewtwo EX, and non-EX Mewtwo, making the decision of which one to lead with and why, of course, can matter in a lot of situations. I also have a single copy of Old Amber in my deck. I might end up cutting this in favor of another trainer card, but maybe like a Pokeball. It might be insane that I only have 1 Pokeball in this deck, but this was before I kind of learned about the non-EX Mewtwo tech, and I would just kind of play Old Amber as a way to like kind of invalidate my opponent's Sabrinas. So if I was like trying to set up a Mewtwo and then my opponent went Sabrina, like maybe if I'm trying to build up a Ralt on the bench and my opponent would Sabrina the Ralt into play, like that could be really bad if they knock it out. So Old Amber gives me like a buffer for Sabrinas, where if I have an Old Amber in play, they can like, you know, Sabrina me, and then I can go into Old Amber. They either kill the Old Amber and only get 1 point, or if they can't kill it, they don't kill it. You can always just discard the Old Amber, and it gives you a lot of momentum. So I've really liked it. I've played a lot with it in the Mewtwo deck. I could very well just cut it, though. You know, X Speed is very good for this deck as well. 2 Pokeballs is also great just for making sure you get that Ralts or get another Mewtwo EX or something like that. But all the other cards in the deck are really self-explanatory. Again, double Research, double Giovanni, double Sabrina. Not much explanation needed there. But yeah, that is how I got 5 wins. And it was really easy. Like, again, once I locked in with the Weezing deck, those 3 wins were pretty easy. I think my 3rd game with the Weezing deck was probably the closest one. It took me the longest. Like, it looked like it could go either way, but then I was able to kind of navigate a win. The 4th game, which was my first Mewtwo game, it was kind of close, but I ended up winning, and then the 5th game was really, really one-sided in my favor. So, I mean, yeah, this is a great event, and like I said, I mean, if you play enough and you understand the game, you could probably get 5 wins with just about anything. But of course, if you have a strong deck, like a meta deck, you know, if you have Pikachu, Mewtwo, Starmie, you know, some kind of Misty deck, Moltres, even like a Blaine deck, even like a obviously Weezing deck. Like any of these decks can do really well and absolutely get 5 wins. So just have fun with it. I think the event goes for about a week, so you know you can try different things out. And my thought process was like, okay, I'm gonna at least start with like a weaker deck, just to have fun. And then if it looks like things are getting a little like sweaty or like I need to lock in, then I'll switch over to like a powerful deck like Mewtwo or Pikachu. But again, my philosophy was avoid Pokemon with coin flips and try to avoid Pokemon with 3-stage evolutions, or rather 2-stage evolutions. And that did it for me. I guess Gardevoir has a 2-stage evolution, but either way. So yeah, that is how I succeeded in this event. It was a ton of fun. I'm going to continue playing this Weezing deck. It's probably my actual favorite deck at the moment. I mean, I enjoy like a Starmie Greninja deck that I've been playing, but it's a Starmie deck. It's a Misty deck, so like it doesn't feel that cool to brag about it, but this Weezing deck has been doing really well for me, both in the event but also in regular online play. So there you go. Go ahead and copy it for yourself if you'd like. You know, let me know in the comments what you think of the video. Also, of course, I would be interested in hearing what deck you used to hit the 5 wins. No judgment here. If you spammed Pikachu or spammed Mewtwo, I am not going to judge. Of course, I played Mewtwo myself. So, you know, whatever you did to get there, it's all on you. Like, you know, that's good for you if you got it. If you're having trouble, you know, let me know in the comments. Maybe people can offer suggestions or things like that. You can leave your deck list as well if you're interested in that. So yeah, have some fun. If you want to copy my deck list, also let me know in the comments how it does for you. And take care. Have a great one. Let me know if you'd like to see more TCG Pocket content, especially some gameplay, maybe even some streams. We'll see. But I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.